Hello and welcome to another video. This is Chris the Pocket Master here to talk about Fightbox's R5 USB arcade game spinner controller for the PC and Raspberry Pi. Unfortunately, I do not have a Raspberry Pi, but I have no doubt that it will work the way it should on there because it works on the PC quite well. So without further ado, let's dive into the R5 spinner. I have never really owned a controller like this before. However, I have played on enough spinner controllers to know the difference between a bad one and a good one. I also have known the struggles in getting controllers like this to work on MAME or RetroArch, but those struggles were like years ago. I mean, I'm talking like 2008, 2009, 2010, you know, back in the day. I'm sure things have changed since then. Now, if you're considering getting one of these things, I'm sure you're getting it because you want a definitive way to play games like Tempest, Breakout, and other games that support this controller. Keep in mind, there are a few games that support controllers like this. You can't play games like Street Fighter or Grand Theft Auto with this thing. This is to simulate an arcade experience. That is what you are paying for, and we shall see if that is what you get. In this video, I will go over the architecture of this controller, how to set it up on RetroArch and Steam, the responsiveness of the spinner, how does it hold up when playing arcade games, the durability, and would I recommend this controller to you? Let me tackle the number one thing on this list, which is the architecture of this controller. This thing has the same kind of look as the Fightbox R2 arcade stick for the Neo Geo AES. It is plain white, ready to be decorated with stuff. It is perfect for people that like to put stickers, autographs, or other designs on things. The spinner looks nice, and it feels sturdy enough to handle some gaming. The two buttons on the face of the controller are standard push-down buttons with plastic in between the motherboard and the buttons. No clicking whatsoever. However, there are buttons on the sides that do click. I wonder why they're like that. I mean, it's no big deal to me, but it may be important to someone who wants to purchase this. I'm thinking that these side buttons may be used for like pinball games, but I mean, overall, it's a good looking controller. Now, a controller like this can be confusing to set up on RetroArch if you do not know your way around the platform. If you are using this controller on a game that supports it off of Steam, then it is usually a plug and play kind of deal. But before I talk about Steam, let me tell you how to set it up on RetroArch. First, select the game that is supported. And when you plug in this device, make sure you are using two controllers. One could be a regular PC controller and the other one can be the R5 spinner. So go to RetroBinds, click port 1 controller, then make sure the device index appears as, let's say, an Xbox 360 controller or whatever controller you have. After that, go to port 2 and make sure the device index is set to Arduino Micro. I think that's how you pronounce it. But this right here is the R5 spinner controller. Okay, after you chose the game you want to play, go to quick menu and then you're going to go to controls. Go to port 2 controls where your spinner is. Set the map port to port 1. And then go to port 1 where your Xbox controller is, set that thing to port 2, and you're all set. And then after that, go to manage remap files, and you're going to want to save this profile. You're going to want to save this. Let me see if I can find out where to save it. Manage remap files, save this thing, save it, and you're all set for this game. And by doing this, you shouldn't have to do this again for the game you are playing. In the past, I had to do this every time I used the spinner, but now RetroArch, it has ways for you to save profiles in each game, so take advantage of that. Now, as for setting it up in Steam, you really do not have to do anything, because if a game supports it, it will read it. You may have to control some things with a keyboard or a second controller though, but sometimes you do not have to do that. It just depends on the game or the software. Okay, now I'm going to go over the sensitivity of the spinner. Depending on the game you choose, the sensitivity is pretty standard to most games that support it. Some games are very sensitive, while others require you to spin it more than other games would. Overall, the sensitivity, it just all depends on the games you play, which is good for me because I like to use the default settings for games that support spinners. Like I said earlier, you can't really use this controller for other games that do not support spinner controllers, but the games that do support it is a different story. It completely changes up the gameplay on every game you use it on. Take a game like Neo Breakout for example. The game requires precision if you want to get a serious high score, but not only does it require precision, it requires speed too. Since this game is in the mid-range sensitivity for the R5, you do kind of have to spin the spinner a bit to move fast and precise. Now, using this controller on a game like Tempest from the 1981 arcade is a game changer for sure. The sensitivity on the spinner is pretty high on this game, and you need it to be high since you have to constantly move around to make sure no enemies go on your platform. The original arcade had a spinner as well, but if I remember correctly, the spinner was on the right hand and your buttons were on the left, which did not sit right with me as a gamer. This controller, however, the R5, it just makes sense to me since the spinner's on the left. But however, if you want to get a spinner that is on the right side, you could order one on Fightbox's website. They have both left and right options. I have tried Tempest 2000 and oh my god, what a freaking blast I had playing this game with the Fightbox's R5 spinner controller. An original arcade stick or controller does not do this game justice. The spinner changes everything in a game like Tempest 2000. The game's sensitivity is pretty low, however you can adjust the sensitivity to your liking and have a blast. I love how you can power up your ship and even get multiple ships to help you out in the chaotic world of Tempest. I never really thought of spinners changing that much of the gameplay within these types of games, but it does. I can honestly tell you that my skills have increased in playing games like Tempest and Breakout. Dare I say that this controller has made Tempest 2000 one of my favorite games of all time? Man, I could not put the controller down for days, which is honestly the reason why it took me so long to make this review. Now, I did try some out of the ordinary games that support spinner or trackball controls, such as Yu Suzuki's Outrun and Hang On. Unfortunately, my skills were overtaken by a regular console controller, so I do not do well playing these types of games on anything else, even the original hardware. For God's sakes, what the hell's wrong with me? However, I can see the potential in these types of games. The spinner lets you turn precisely on the frame you want depending on the sensitivity you set with the trackball in MAME or RetroArch. So if you're used to playing the arcade versions of games like Outrun or Hang On, the R5 spinner controller is about as close as you're going to get without getting a steering wheel or something crazy like that. Now, a lot of these arcade titles that support spinner controllers have something in common. The hardware, it degrades over time. If you go to an arcade and see the 1981 Tempest machine, it most likely has issues with its spinner. This is due to abusing the controller or years of extensive use. Fightbox has sent me nothing but durable controllers that seem like they can stand the test of time. However, I wouldn't be so careless with this particular controller. Protect that spinner because every spinner controller I have used messes up. Store it correctly when you aren't using it. I like putting mine in a box, or I have a piece of cloth to protect it from dust when I'm not using it. I am sure this is a durable controller, but I do not want to take a chance. I love this thing so much. Overall, this controller is a perfect arcade spinner. It worked better than I would have ever imagined it to work. I think it is definitely worth it, even if you just wanted to play Tempest from 1981 or Tempest 2000. It totally changed the way I viewed games that support arcade spinner controls, and it even made one of them one of my favorite games of all time. Anyways, y'all, thanks for watching. This is Chris the Pocket Master saying good night.